Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the South Donetsk direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation on the line between the village of Konstantinovka, the villages of Antonovka and Katerinovka. Pro-Russian sources reported that as a result of previous offensive, the Russians managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt and to enter the southeastern part of the village of Antonovka. So, summarizing everything, we can make a conclusion based on the pro-Russian resources that currently the Russians control everything that located to the east of this red line. Obviously, the significant progress, the Russians control around 20% of this entire agglomeration, and the Russians are moving further. As for geolocations, from the southeastern part of Katerinovka, the Russian sources published the video of how they were bombing the Ukrainian forces with the Toretsk flamethrower system. Now let's move further and let's talk about the most important progress of the armed forces of Russian Federation during the previous 24 hours, during the previous 12 hours. We are talking about the breakthrough in the city of Toretsk. As you can see, we have adjusted the map in Russian favor, and as you can see, the changes are significant. The most important is that the Russians managed to establish complete control over the block by the name of Zabalka. If you remember, a few days ago we were talking about the situation. We were talking that from the central citadel the Russians were moving towards this intersection of the lines of the streets with the purpose to cut supply and support of Ukrainian forces that were located in that block. We talked about this a few days ago, and when the Russians managed to cut the lines, the Ukrainians lost their possibilities to bring additional forces, to bring additional munition with vehicles. Of course, the Ukrainians had possibilities to enter the territory just on foot, but obviously that was not enough to hold their lines in this block. The Russians intensified their activity, and as a result of clashes during the previous few days, the Russians managed to capture almost the entire block, just few streets left or something like this. We made the changes on the ground based on the video that was published by the 100th Mechanized Brigade. This is a very long video with a significant number of episodes of how the Ukrainians were FPV droning the Russians all over the entire city of Toretsk. A lot of episodes, as you can see. The quality of video is very good, and this quality allows us to geolocate almost every single place that was attacked by the Ukrainians. If we return back on map, the explosions that Ukraine FPV drone attacks took place in these 2 points of the block by the name of Zabalka. One attack took place in the prison, three more strikes took place in the central citadel, and 2 more strikes took place in the eastern part of Donetsk. So based on all these videos, all these episodes, we have adjusted the map in Russian favor. Obviously the significant progress, but this is not the last information. According to different neutral mappers, the Russians continue their offensive and managed to improve their positions in the central part of Toretsk, heading towards the coal mine of Toretsk. This is the mine of Toretsk and the landfill of Toretsk, and the Russians are moving in this direction. Furthermore, as for pro-Russian sources, they reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians entered the mine of Toretsk Vuhilya. So currently there are very heavy clashes also on the territory of this area, and the Ukrainians are falling back. Furthermore, the sources reported that the Ukrainians lost their lines completely, and the Ukrainians retreated towards the villages of Petrikovka and Sherbinovka. So now the Ukrainians are trying to organize their defense along this line, but something tells me that they will not be able to do this. So basically, the defense of Toretsk has collapsed completely. The Ukrainians most likely will be forced to fall back and to abandon their positions in the agglomeration within the next 2 weeks, and the Russians will finish the battle and they will begin moving further in the direction of Konstantinovka. Now let's move further and let's talk about the second most important update for the previous night, and we're going to talk about the Russian progress in the Siversk direction. If you remember, just a few days ago, a week ago, the Russian sources reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the village by the name of Kupiansk. Yesterday we got the video of how the Russians were raising the flag on the territory of the settlement in the most western part of this small village. Based on this video, based on the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, we have adjusted map in this area, and today we continue receiving updates, but now we are talking about the line between Grigorovka and Serebryanka. If you remember, yesterday in the previous update we were talking that the Russian armed forces have broken through the Ukrainian armed forces defenses in the Kremenaya area and have begun clashes clashes for the villages of Serebryanka and Grigorovka. That was stated by the very highly authorized military officer of the armed force of Russian Federation. And today, that was report we got yesterday on the 8th of October, and today on the 9th of October we have additional changes on the ground. In this video we can see Russian soldier that was raising the flag in the most eastern part of the village by the name of Grigorovka, which is obviously 100% confirmation that the Russians managed to establish complete control over at least over the eastern part of the settlement. As for other military experts, other Russian mappers or pro-Russian sources, they reported that the Russians managed to move even further, and currently there are very heavy clashes already on the territory of the village by the name of Serebryanka, and very likely the Russians during the upcoming day will be able to establish complete control over the village, and then this is going to be another disaster for the armed forces of Ukraine. So, and we have additional changes on the ground according to different mappers without any confirmations. According to this report, the Russians managed to improve their positions to the north, let's say like this, and to take under control the hills. Furthermore, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the Kupiansk forest as well. This information was provided us by neutral mappers. So, summarizing everything, we can make a conclusion that in the very near future, the line of combat contact in this area can go along this red line. And if this information happens, if this situation happens, then the Ukrainians in the city of Siversk would be encircled at least for 40-50%. And most likely after the Battle of Serebryanka, the Russian forces will continue moving further in the western direction towards the villages of Dronovka and Platonovka. And at the same time, the Russian forces will begin moving in the Kupiansk forest towards the village of Yampol. So if the Russians are able to do this, then the Siversk agglomeration will be about to taken by the Russians. And don't forget that most likely in the very near future, we're going to see additional intensifying of actions on the line Fedorovka, Perezhny, Zvanovka, and Svyatopokrovskaya. All these attacks, all these updates, and all these attempts to attack from the Russian side may lead to the situation when the Siversk agglomeration, the city of Siversk, would be completely encircled by the Russians. During the previous 24 hours, we also got the video from the city of Kramatorsk. In this video, we can see how the Russians attack a big industrial zone, big industrial construction, where the Ukrainians, according to information we have, were producing or doing something with vehicles, maybe drones, maybe missiles. Maybe the Ukrainians were using this plant as some ammo depot or warehouse, and as you can see, as a result of attack, some part of the building was completely destroyed. So very important updates are coming from the city of Toretsk and from the Siversk direction. As for the northern Kupiansk direction, we have just one video of how the Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian supply roads through the river Voskol. And telling the truth, since the beginning of the special military operation, we have already received probably hundreds of videos from the same bridge, from the same pontoon area. So I'm not even sure whether this video is fresh or maybe this is some old video. So we see that the situation for the Ukrainians is very critical, but Zelensky continues insisting on his peace plan, and the next summit in Ramstein, as you know, the United States of America decided not to join this meeting, based on the reports about very huge storm on the territory of the United States of America. But despite the absence of Joe Biden in this meeting, most likely the Ukrainians will receive additional military support and additional financial help. Of course, this is not going to be very big and huge, but at least something to hold their lines as long as possible. Now let's discuss the situation in the Middle East. We also have additional changes on the ground. During the previous 24 hours, the Israeli forces published additional videos showing progress on the ground. For example, in the vicinity of the village by the name of Bint Jabul, we have two videos. In this video, we can see there are Israeli soldiers that were raising the flag exactly in this point, and based on this video, we have adjusted the map in Israeli favor in the war between the Lebanon and Israel, and a little bit further in the north, in the vicinity of the village by the name of Maur. In this video, we can see the activity of Israeli forces as well, and how they were clearing these buildings and how they were moving further in the northern direction. So we can say that the Israeli forces are moving, but not so fast. They're trying to be very careful. There is a very huge resistance from the Lebanon forces. So let's stay tuned and see what is going to be next. And that's it for this video. Military Summary channel reminds you, we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.